The boundaries are broader now. But we were talking about that when the first record with Brooks and Dunn. I think they just continue to expand.
They sold 30 million albums together, won every award possible, and made history as the country's greatest duo. But Ronnie Dunn just revealed the real reason Brooks and Dunn split in 2009. It wasn't a burnout like they claimed. At 72, fighting health issues and facing his own mortality, he decided to tell the truth. What he said about those final years made Nashville insiders gasp. Even Kix Brooks wasn't expecting this. The confession changes everything fans thought they knew about country music's most successful partnership. They say music comes from the soul, but in Ronnie Dunn's case, it came from oil fields, honky-tonks, and church pews. Born on June 1, 1953, in the tiny town of Coleman, Texas, Ronnie was caught between two worlds. His father was a rough-edged truck driver who played honky-tonk guitar, while his mother filled their home with gospel and strict Baptist values. One minute, Ronnie was watching his dad play in smoky bars. The next, he was in a church choir on Sunday morning. That strange balance between the sacred and the rowdy would shape everything he became. It wasn't just noise in the background. It was the beginning of a lifelong obsession with music. But stability wasn't part of the plan. Ronnie didn't just switch schools a few times. He moved so often that by the time he graduated, he'd been in 13 different schools across Texas and Oklahoma. 13. That meant 13 new sets of friends, teachers, rules, and local radio stations. One town might be into country, another all about gospel or blues. This constant uprooting didn't break him. It expanded him. He picked up different sounds and styles like souvenirs. Each school added something new to his ears, and along the way, it gave him something most artists never get: range. Real, earned range. While other kids were dreaming about electric guitars, Ronnie picked up something most country stars never touch: the saxophone. He joined his school's band, learning how melodies moved and how rhythms hit. It wasn't glamorous, but it was training. Meanwhile, at home, his father would come back from a long haul or a day in the oil fields, dead tired but still ready to show Ronnie a few chords. It wasn't a formal music education. It was better. It was real-world grit mixed with heart. Ronnie saw that music wasn't just a hobby. It was a lifeline. His dad worked 2 brutal jobs and still made time to play. That lesson stuck. In the early 70s, Ronnie thought maybe psychology was his future. He enrolled at Abilene Christian University, but his heart had other plans. He was sneaking out to play in bars, soaking up the nightlife, singing to people who were halfway drunk and fully emotional. But the university had rules, strict ones. Playing in bars didn't just clash with the school's values. It got him kicked out. That was the moment. He could have cleaned up, gone back to school, and played it safe. But he didn't. He doubled down on music, even when it meant losing everything else. Still, that didn't mean he turned his back on faith. While he was still in school, Ronnie served as a youth minister and music leader at a small church in Avoca. He wasn't just playing music. He was leading worship, guiding people, helping them feel something deeper. That experience didn't just influence his voice, it shaped his soul. Gospel wasn't just a genre to him. It was home. You can still hear it in how he sings: the ache, the hope, the fire. By the early 80s, Ronnie had relocated to Tulsa, Oklahoma. If Texas gave him his roots, Tulsa gave him fire. The city was buzzing. Clubs like Tulsa City Limits were packed, and the music scene was a wild mix of country, blues, and southern rock. Dunn was in the thick of it, performing night after night, sometimes for crowds of over 2,000 people. It wasn't glamorous. It was a grind, but it was also the perfect testing ground. If a song didn't make people dance, it was dead. Simple as that. Those dance floors taught Ronnie what no classroom ever could: how to move people, how to make them feel. And then came the wild twist. In 1988, a drummer named Jamie Oldacre, who had played with Bob Seger and Eric Clapton, spotted a Marlboro talent search form at a gas station. Without even asking, he submitted Ronnie's name. Ronnie didn't take it seriously at first, but he sent in a demo anyway. That demo included rough versions of Scootin Boogie and Neon Moon. He made the finals. He won. That win came with a trip to Nashville and a recording session with producer Scott Hendricks. And that session, it changed everything. Hendricks introduced Ronnie to Arista's Tim DuBois, who then paired him with another struggling artist, Kix Brooks. That meeting was lightning in a bottle. Within 2 years, Brooks and Dunn were everywhere. But before the awards, the arenas, and the #1 hits, there were years of rejection. Back in the early 80s, Ronnie had signed with Churchill MCA and released 2 singles, It's Written All Over Your Face and She Put the Sad in All His Songs. Both peaked at number 59. Not terrible, but not enough. Those songs came and went, and Ronnie kept hustling, playing shows, writing songs, staying in the game even when no one seemed to care. In 1990, 2 men in their 40s were about to give up on their solo careers. Ronnie Dunn, a Texas-born singer with a big voice and a gospel heart, and Kix Brooks, a Louisiana songwriter known for his rowdy energy, had both spent years chasing success. They'd written songs for others, played in small clubs, and faced one rejection after another. They didn't know each other. They weren't looking for a partner. But fate had other plans. That same year, a record executive named Tim DuBois saw something neither of them did. He thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be stronger together than alone. So he arranged a meeting over lunch. Neither of them wanted to be there. Kix even said, "We don't want to do this. We don't know each other. I mean, this is just silly." But something clicked. That awkward lunch turned into a songwriting session. Then another. And by the end of the week, they had written 2 songs that would define the start of their legacy. On August 13, 1991, Brooks and Dunn released Brand New Man. The album hit like a thunderstorm. 4 straight songs went to #1 on the country charts: Brand New Man, Scootin Boogie, My Next Broken Heart, and Neon Moon. Scootin Boogie sparked a line dancing craze across America, while Neon Moon gave Heartbreak a new anthem. The album sold over 7 million copies in the U.S. alone. That kind of debut was unheard of in country music, but it was only the beginning. Their success wasn't just about hit songs, it was about contrast. Ronnie had a smooth, emotional voice that could make any ballad feel like a prayer. Kix had grit, charm, and raw power. Their voices shouldn't have worked together, but somehow they did. Ronnie could carry a slow song, and Kix could light up a stage. Together, they covered nearly 3 octaves, blending emotion and energy in a way no one else could. Even their writing was fast and electric. Within days of meeting, they had already written Brand New Man and My Next Broken Heart. Ronnie wrote Neon Moon and Scootin Boogie by himself. It was like they had waited their whole lives for the right creative match, and finally found it. As their fame grew, so did their awards. Brooks and Dunn sold over 30 million records worldwide. That made them the best-selling country duo in history and the highest-selling duo in any genre. They won 30 Academy of Country Music Awards and 18 Country Music Association Awards. From 1992 to 2006, they were named CMA Vocal Duo of the Year 14 times in a row, missing only 1 year. Nobody's ever come close. Year after year, new artists showed up, tried their luck, took their shot. but none could take down Brooks and Dunn. They held on through the changing tides of country music, standing like a mountain in a storm. It wasn't luck. It was raw talent, hard work, and Dunn's voice that filled every arena to the back row. Their numbers were just as unreal. Together, they released albums like Brand New Man and The Long Haul, each going multi-platinum. That's millions of copies flying off shelves. And the hits? 24 #1 songs. Not a few, not 10, 24. My Maria lit up the charts in 1996. Ain't Nothing About You became the most played song of 2001. Red Dirt Road didn't just play. It echoed through an entire generation. One song after another, they dominated radio. Every release felt like a guaranteed hit. Ronnie Dunn wasn't just a singer. He was a machine, delivering anthem after anthem. When it came to touring, they didn't just show up, they took over. Crowds packed in by the tens of thousands. Night after night, more than 20,000 people filled the seats, screaming, singing, waiting for that first chord. In the 2000s, their concerts became something else entirely. Fireworks, giant stages, wild energy. It felt like a rock show wrapped in a country soul. Fans didn't just attend, they experienced it. Sold-out arenas became their second home, and every tour felt bigger than the last. Brooks and Dunn didn't follow the rules. They rewrote them. Then came something even rarer, the ACM Triple Crown Award. Only a few ever get it. You have to win Top New Artist, Top Vocal Duo, and Entertainer of the Year over your career. That's not just success, that's dominance. And Brooks and Dunn did it. From their first big break to becoming the face of country music, they checked every box. It was a rare kind of career, one that hit hard from the start and just kept climbing. But Ronnie wasn't just about sticking to one lane. In 2006, he teamed up with Vince Gill and Sheryl Crow for Building Bridges. It wasn't just a collaboration, it was magic. Their voices melted together in a way that made people stop and listen. That song won awards, topped charts, and proved something big. Ronnie Dunn could hold his own next to anyone. Country, pop, didn't matter. He didn't need to change who he was. He just brought his sound and made it work with anyone brave enough to stand beside him. Still, behind the stage lights and roaring crowds, the pressure was building. From 1991 to 2009, Brooks and Dunn released 11 studio albums, 50 singles, and stayed on the road almost non-stop. By the late 2000s, it started catching up. They were winning award after award, over 75 in total, and had sold more than 30 million records. But the price was high. Ronnie and Kix were exhausted. They even began recording in different studios, with different producers. That wasn't bitterness, it was burnout. Too much, too fast, for too long. They always looked united on stage. But off stage, the weight of expectations started to wear them down. What began as a powerful partnership started to feel more like a business deal. Compromises were harder. Time apart was necessary. By the late 90s, cracks had started to show. There were moments when they almost split years before they finally did. And yet, they kept going. Not for themselves, but for the fans. They pushed through the pressure because they knew what they had built mattered to millions. In August 2009, the country music world was stunned. Brooks and Dunn, after more than 20 years of hits and packed tours, announced they were calling it quits. No fights, no scandals, just a quiet, cryptic message. It's time to call it a day. Fans were confused. Industry insiders were shocked. After all, this duo had sold over 30 million albums and won more CMA awards than any other duo in history. They were giants. On September 3, 2010, their final show at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville felt like the end of an era. But for Ronnie Dunn, It wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of a personal storm he never saw coming. Without the Brooks and Dunn name, Dunn felt lost. For years he had moved with the rhythm of a machine. Record, tour, repeat. Now the machine stopped. "I didn't know who I was without the brand," he said later. It felt like stepping off a moving train into silence. For the first time in decades, there were no lights, no crowds, no safety net. He released solo music, but nothing felt the same. He began to question everything: his voice, his writing, his worth. The confidence that once felt solid started to crumble. And then came the rejection. Country radio, which once couldn't get enough of him, barely paid attention. The charts were now filled with younger names, new faces, new sounds. Dunn was no longer the voice of the moment. Radio wasn't embracing him, one insider recalled, and it hurt. Badly. Not because he needed fame, but because he felt like he didn't matter anymore. He called it the darkest period of his career. For a man who had helped shape the sound of modern country, being pushed to the side cut deep. The silence got louder. For a man used to living in the spotlight, being alone was unfamiliar and painful. He admitted that he felt like it might all be over. "I thought maybe that was it. Maybe I already had my moment," he said. That thought terrified him. He stopped writing for radio and started writing just for himself. And in that stillness, something began to shift. The music started sounding like him again, raw, real, and full of soul. After spending decades as one half of the legendary Brooks and Dunn, Ronnie Dunn made a bold move in 2011. He stepped into the spotlight alone for the first time in his career. His solo debut album, simply titled Ronnie Dunn, came out on June 7, 2011, and it didn't just make noise, it exploded. The album shot straight to #1 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart and landed at #5 on the Billboard 200. In its first week, it sold more than 45,000 copies. The lead single, Bleed Red, became a surprise hit, climbing to #10 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. Even more surprising? Dunn didn't write the song himself. That was rare. But its message, unity, forgiveness, healing, hit a nerve. America was still struggling in the wake of a deep recession. People needed something honest, and Dunn delivered it with a voice that hadn't lost an ounce of power. Instead of playing it safe, he pushed further. In 2014, he released Peace, Love, and Country Music, and he did it all on his own terms. The album was wild. It mixed country with rock, blues, even electronic dance music. One song, Country This, had a dubstep drop. Nobody saw that coming. 2 years later, in 2016, he shocked everyone again by covering Ariana Grande's pop song, Tattooed Heart. Most thought it was a joke until they heard it. The album also included collaborations with old friends like Reba McEntire and even Kix Brooks. Then, in 2020, he released Redone, a covers album that paid tribute to his heroes. He sang everything from Tom Petty to George Strait. 3 albums, 3 bold swings, each one proof that Dunn wasn't afraid to shake up country music, even if it meant ruffling feathers. To pull it all off, he had to take a risk that most artists his age would never dare. In 2014, he walked away from the major label system and launched his own label, Little Will E Records. The name came from his dad's nickname, a small personal tribute wrapped in a big professional risk. But Dunn didn't just want freedom, he needed it. Under his own label, he finally had full creative control. No corporate filters, no executive approvals. He distributed his music digitally, directly to fans, even skipping traditional stores. It was a radical move, especially in Nashville, but it worked. That independence gave him room to breathe and to create without compromise. Still, nothing about the solo path was easy. After his first album, Dunn hit a wall. Arista Nashville, the label he'd worked with for years, went through a massive restructuring. Suddenly, Dunn didn't have the same promotional power behind him. Country radio stations treated him like a newcomer. Programmers who had once praised him now gave him the cold shoulder. He was 58 and starting over. And in an industry obsessed with youth and trends, that was brutal. Even with his name, his voice, and his history, he struggled to get airplay. It was a hard truth. Fame doesn't protect you from being forgotten. After their split in 2010, Brooks and Dunn were done. But in December 2014, something changed. A surprise announcement stunned the country music world. Kix Brooks and Ronnie Dunn would reunite with Reba McEntire for a Las Vegas residency. They called it Together in Vegas. When the show launched at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace in June 2015, it was like time rewound. The chemistry between them was still there, stronger than ever. People rushed in to see it. More than 300,000 tickets were sold, and by 2017, it had brought in over $50 million. Fans weren't just watching a concert. They were watching history get rewritten. Even Rolling Stone said the shows had electric nostalgia. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement. And it opened the door for other country stars to follow them to Vegas. But they didn't stop there. In 2019, they did something most legends avoid. They changed their sound. The album was called Reboot. Instead of repeating old hits, they reimagined them. And they didn't do it alone. They brought in a new generation: Casey Musgraves, Luke Combs, Kane Brown, Thomas Rhett. Each song was a fresh version of a classic, blending old-school twang with modern country shine. It was risky, but it worked. On April 20th, 2019, Reboot hit #1 on Billboard's Top Country Albums chart. That was their first #1 album in a decade. In its first week, it moved over 21,000 units. Streams rolled in by the millions. Critics loved it. NPR called it a masterclass in musical reinvention. And fans, both old and new, were suddenly united under one sound. Brooks and Dunn weren't just back. They were bigger than ever. That same year, the honor they long deserved finally came. On October 20th, 2019, they were inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Their names were now etched next to legends like Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton. At the ceremony, both Brooks and Dunn held back tears. It had been a long journey, from small gigs in Nashville to the biggest stages in the world. But the numbers said it all. Over 30 million albums sold, 20 songs at #1, and a record 17 CMA Vocal Duo of the Year awards. No other country duo had done what they had done, and now no one could deny their place in history. Their style, part honky-tonk, part rock, part radio-friendly pop, had shaped the sound of 90s and 2000s country. That night, they weren't just stars, they were icons. Years passed, but they didn't fade. In 2024, they came back with Reboot 2. It followed the same idea, classic songs remade with today's stars. One standout was Neon Moon, a haunting duet with Lainey Wilson that caught fire. The album pushed boundaries again, and just like before, it worked. At the 2024 CMA Awards, they stunned the room by winning Vocal Duo of the Year once more. That was their 18th win in the category. Yet another record. Most artists can't stay relevant for 5 years. Brooks and Dunn had done it for over 30, and not by playing it safe. They took chances, adapted, and kept evolving. That's what kept them at the top in an industry that moves fast and forgets even faster. But maybe their biggest impact isn't just on stage. In recent years, they've taken on a different role: mentors. Ronnie Dunn especially has spoken up about helping younger artists break through. And it hasn't just been talk. They've taken newcomers on tour. They've collaborated with them. They've given them a platform when no one else would. In 2023, they launched the Brooks Dunn Next Generation project. It offered support, advice, and resources to artists trying to make it in a tough business. They didn't just want country music to grow. They wanted it to open up to different sounds, different faces, different stories. Rolling Stone called them leaders, not just because they sold records, but because they made space for others to rise. Ronnie Dunn never planned for December 2024 to end in a hospital bed. But at 72, what was meant to be a relaxing ski trip in Colorado turned into a nightmare. He crashed hard. The damage was bad, so bad that doctors had to perform a total knee replacement. The surgery lasted 12 hours. Just half a day later, his daughter Haley posted a video showing her father with a walker. Still drugged up but trying to smile, he made a joke online. Maybe I should rewrite "I don't dance" to "I probably shouldn't ski anymore at 72. But behind the joke was a real blow. He had to cancel everything. Doctors gave him strict orders. No stage, no travel, no singing for 8 weeks. Fans were stunned. Just weeks earlier, Brooks and Dunn had picked up their 15th CMA Award for Vocal Duo of the Year. Now, one half of the group was learning how to walk again. By April 2025, he was back on stage. But something was off. On April 3rd, in Indianapolis, during a sold-out show, Ronnie was singing Scootin Boogie when he suddenly stopped, right in the middle of the encore. He looked out at the crowd, said, "Sing it if you know it," then waved, touched his chest, and walked off. No goodbye. No explanation. A TikTok clip of that exact moment exploded online. Earlier that night, he had mentioned having trouble breathing. At a Texas show a few weeks earlier, he'd talked about recovering from COVID-19 and strep throat. People in the audience that night said he looked winded. Some noticed he was sitting during songs, a rare thing for a guy known for moving non-stop on stage. The tour went on, but everyone could tell he wasn't okay. Turns out, he wasn't just recovering from surgery. He was also fighting a double infection. COVID-19 and strep throat hit him at the same time in early 2025. For almost 2 weeks, he couldn't sing a note. He was on steroids, antibiotics, and strict vocal rest. The breathing problems didn't go away either. By March, he still hadn't fully recovered. In one interview, he admitted, "I'm still fighting some respiratory issues from COVID." At his age, after knee surgery, getting hit with both viruses felt like the universe was ganging up on him. Fans were worried. Fellow musicians started posting messages of support. Everyone knew how rare it was to get both illnesses at once, and how dangerous it could be. As spring rolled on, fans began to notice something that hadn't happened in 30 years of Brooks and Dunn concerts. Ronnie Dunn was sitting. A lot. In videos from their 2025 shows, he's seen on stools, leaning on speakers, catching his breath. The crowd noticed too. On social media, people wrote things like, "He muscled through it," "He was hurting," and "He sounds like he's out of breath." These weren't just off nights. This was a different version of Ronnie, a quieter, slower, more fragile one. But he kept showing up. Even when his voice cracked or his legs gave out, he didn't quit. Eventually, he spoke up. Online, in interviews, he told fans the truth. He was still healing, but he wasn't quitting. He promised to keep singing as long as possible. He thanked his crew, his family, and the fans who stuck with him. For many, that honesty hit harder than any performance. He wasn't just powering through the pain. He was letting people see it, and that made them love him more. Behind the spotlight, Ronnie has always had something solid holding him up: his family. He married Janine in 1990, the same year Brooks and Dunn became a thing. Together, they've raised 3 kids: Whitney, Harley, and Jesse. As of 2024, they have 5 grandchildren. When he's not on tour, he's at The Barn, a 600-acre farm near Nashville. There, he fishes, watches baby eagles, and hosts big family dinners. It's his escape. Janine, who was widowed before she met him, has been his rock for decades. When Brooks and Dunn took a break, it was Janine who pushed him to try a solo career. He's always said that without her, none of it would have worked. And when their daughter survived cancer, they became even closer. Through all the fame, they've stayed grounded. Rare for anyone in music. His music career speaks for itself. Over 30 million records sold, 24 #1 hits, 30 ACM awards. And the Halls of Fame? He's been inducted into the Arkansas Entertainers Hall of Fame, the Country Music Hall of Fame, and in 2025, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. At each event, he stands in awe, humbled, grateful, often emotional. During one speech, he even thanked his therapist. Because for Ronnie, it's never just been about the music. Photography became his second passion. The Lensman Project isn't just a hobby. It's a serious side of him. He captures wide-open plains, cowboy life, wildlife. His images have made it into magazines, galleries, even the Country Music Hall of Fame. When his daughter battled kidney cancer, he started donating part of the proceeds to the American Cancer Society. During the pandemic, he spent more time outside with a camera than a microphone, and somehow he found peace in the stillness. More recently, he's turned his spotlight toward mental health. He's spoken openly about exhaustion, pressure, and breaking points. After leaving that stage in April, he didn't hide. He talked about it. He said he needed rest. That moment made other musicians listen. He's part of Heal the Music Day and supports the Music Health Alliance. And for someone who built a career on strength, it was his honesty that showed people what real strength looks like.